The Sarasota County Bar Association is a proud partner in bringing you Law and Sarasota. With voluntary membership of over 900 lawyers and judges, the Sarasota County Bar Association is your community's leader in advancing legal professionalism, practice development, and public service. Visit www.sarasotabar.com for more information and to use the online directory list to find an attorney.
This program is brought to you by a grant from the Community Foundation of Sarasota County and the Sarasota County Bar Association. The Education Channel produces the program and broadcasts from its state-of-the-art campus on Beneva Road. They make this program possible.
Welcome to Law in Sarasota. This program is brought to you by a grant from the Community Foundation of Sarasota County and the Sarasota County Bar Association. Suncoast Technical College provides its state-of-the-art studio for our panel and produces the show for the Education Channel. We are indebted to them for the contributions that make this program possible. I'm Senior Judge Lee Haworth. If you're a parent with school-age kids, or if you are currently a student, this program is for you. We're going to be talking about vaping, electronic nicotine delivery systems, or e-cigarettes. They are in common use among middle school and high school students. Devices like Juuls, which we will talk about, are an example. Instead of tobacco cigarettes, kids are vaping covertly at school in bathrooms. Often they do it openly in public. It's the cool thing to be doing. Ask a teacher. Teachers will tell you lots of students are doing it with and without their parents' knowledge. Should you as a parent, a student, or a responsible adult care about this? Let's find out. We have two guests today. First, let me introduce Charles Denault. He is a member of the Tobacco-Free Partnership here in Florida. The partnership is concerned not only with tobacco products, but also with nicotine delivery systems. He'll tell us his concerns and some of the projects that the partnership is involved in. Also with us is Sajid Ghali. He's a graduating senior at Pineview School. He's a student activist who devotes many hours to educating his peers about e-cigarettes. He'll share what he has learned. Some of this may come as a newsflash for many of you. I know it did for me. So welcome, Charles. So tell me about the Tobacco-Free Partnership.
Well, Judge, thank you so much for having me. The Tobacco-Free Partnership is really about educating the public and promoting less use of tobacco products. These can be cigarettes or can be vaping devices as well. And some of the things that we do here locally is research. We do surveys and some observational assessments. And that's to help us promote to local governments to put in stricter rules about licensing, perhaps raising the smoking age in Sarasota is one thing we're advocating. And then we've done some other things too. We work with the local the transit authority to put in breathe easy zones so people who get on and off the bus aren't encountering clouds of smoke. And then just before I joined here, they put in place, they worked with the local beaches to put cigarette butt collection devices on the beaches so we get less trash too. So everything about reducing tobacco and healthier outcomes for our residents.
Have you found there's really a lack of information in the public about, I think tobacco's gotten most of the press, but how about these electronic devices that deliver nicotine?
Absolutely. I think, they've been promoted as healthier alternatives, and they may reduce some health risks that are associated with smoking. But the fact is they're promoting an addictive drug, nicotine, and that is something that these manufacturers have been not being all that clear about, both to adults and to the youth.
Well, you're also fighting a enormous public relations push on behalf of the manufacturers of these devices. And it's really kind of a David versus Goliath thing, just to get the information out. So I'm glad to see that you've been doing that. I'm hoping it is effective. We're fortunate today to have Sajid Ghali with us here. So Sajid, let me ask you, first I want to congratulate you. You're a senior at Pineview. You're graduating in just a couple of days.
Thank you.
And also, I don't know if you know, but he's been accepted at University of Pennsylvania.
Oh,
He's
fabulous.
going to start there in the fall, which is
It
one
will
of the Ivy Leagues, and congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
So, Sajid, tell me, how did you get involved with this anti-tobacco nicotine situation?
Of course. So I've always been passionate about advocating against the use of tobacco because since childhood, I've had family members who've smoked and told me about the harms that they've witnessed using tobacco products. And I've always told myself that I would never use these products. But in middle school, I started seeing people I knew gravitating towards e-cigarettes and other tobacco products. And that's when I realized I had to go beyond telling myself not to use tobacco to also advocating for my friends and residents in general in my community to not use tobacco products.
So you're talking middle school, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds?
Yeah, it was actually in 7th grade when
12,
I first...
13, 14 years old?
Yes, so it was actually in 7th grade when I first joined Students Working Against Tobacco at my school because of the issue. And those are 11, 12, 13-year-olds we're talking about.
Well, you've also become a leader in this area with education. Tell me what organizations you're members of and what they do.
Exactly, sure. So as I mentioned, I'm part of Students Working Against Tobacco. We're a statewide group. We have about 7,000 members across the state, and I'm currently the statewide chair. I'm also part of the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. We're a national organization, and I serve as one of their national youth ambassadors. So through both of those organizations, I get the chance to create educational campaigns and also to directly meet with legislators and give our point of view on how the tobacco issue is affecting our communities.
Well, let me ask you, just your own experience. You don't have to name names, but at Pineview, which is a school for gifted children, do you see vaping being used there?
I certainly do. When I go into the school bathrooms, many times I go in and smell the flavors of the vaping products, and I can see it in the stalls. Other times outside of school, when I go on social media, I can see students at my school using these products and putting it on social media like Snapchat and Instagram. So definitely, this is a problem that's happening at all schools across the country.
Well, it just so happens that I got my hands on some of these things because a lot of people haven't seen them. I'm going to put these out here. Maybe you are acquainted with these. Why don't you open that up, Charles, and show them what that is like. This is a device that is sold commercially. And just to let people know something about this, these are examples here too, if you can see it or not, imitating a cigar, imitating a cigarette. And so explain to me how this works.
Sure. Let me just say, these are sort of first-generation products. So these were made to look like cigarettes or cigars, and so it wasn't trying to conceal it. But with the success of Juul and other companies, you'll notice this doesn't really look like a smoking device at all.
Could be a thumb drive.
Exactly. In fact, if you look in here, there's a charging cable that actually fits into a thumb drive. I won't open it now, but this is the actual. So it's basically 3 parts to this, and 2 are in here. One is a battery and a heating element, and then this plugs in, and you can see there's a little liquid in here. And when you put that in, there's a sensor in there. If you draw on this, just a slight breath, it will obviously pull the liquid. It goes over. It ignites the heating element, and out comes a vapor, which could be any flavor, anything, but so that's essentially how it works.
Well, nicotine itself is colorless and odorless, right?
Absolutely.
So they got to do something to have the user know what they're getting. Sajid, what have you seen them do to particularly attract children or minors with this device?
So one of the main strategies that these e-cigarette companies are using to entice youth is by creating flavored e-cigarette devices. So essentially, they sell the e-cigarette e-liquid in flavors like Mango Blast, Cool Cucumber, all these different fruity and candy flavors that entice youth, and that you can just look at it and immediately think of candy and think of fruits and something that youth like.
Well, these obviously the size of them is pretty small, so I take it they're easy to conceal. Put them in a backpack and
very easy to conceal.
Yeah. Where have you seen kids hiding this or concealing them.
Yeah, they can put it in their pockets, they can put it in their shoes, in their backpacks. Really, the Juul device is just a few inches. It's just the size of a flash drive, as Mr. Charles showed. So it's very easy to conceal.
Yeah.
And
It's
not a
about the
problem at
same
all.
size as this one, right?
Exactly, it is.
And you know, as a parent, you're not going to recognize that, right? It's just it just looks like another thumb drive, and it plugs into your computer, and that's how you charge it.
Yeah, when I was researching for this program, I was online and I saw that they actually sell them in boxes that look like candy, fruit boxes, cookie boxes. Matter of fact, you think you're getting a cookie, and instead you're getting one of these devices, these vaping devices. Outside of the school, people go to the movie theater, kids. Outside Hollywood used to be 20, now it's what, 11 or whatever it is. I see them out there smoking on a Saturday night and apparently doing it in the open. Well, let's talk about the industry itself. What's the perception that people have, the misconception about vaping? Sajid, what would you say the general public misunderstands?
So mainly because there's so much advertising and marketing that e-cigarettes are a healthy alternative to normal cigarettes. In fact, there hasn't been enough research to show that they're even helpful in getting smokers to quit cigarettes. And because of that misinformation, students, my age, are believing and buying into this idea that they're a healthy alternative, and they're simply using these products. Many of them don't realize that it even contains nicotine, so many of them don't realize they're ingesting a chemical that could get them addicted for life. And they also don't realize that besides the nicotine, there's also many other chemicals within the e-liquid that could be potentially very harmful.
Yeah, what's interesting is that the anti-tobacco program was pretty effective. I mean, kids really reduced the amount of cigarettes, tobacco they were smoking. But now this has come along, and you've got a profit-driven industry basically using your generation as guinea pigs, lab rats.
Yep.
And I take it that the addiction that they get as a youth is going to carry on into their adulthood, right?
That is the concern. So there was actually a study this year that was conducted by the Journal of the American Medical Association that showed that youth who use e-cigarettes are 4 times more likely to progress to using traditional cigarettes. And that's a very scary statistic for us, because it means that this e-cigarette epidemic is potentially causing a resurgence of cigarette use and reversing all the work that advocates like all of us have worked on to reduce cigarette use.
So how widespread do you think this is? How many kids do you think are using this device? Nationally, you have any idea?
It's in the millions. It's about 20 to 25% of high school students. Recently in Florida, it's actually a little bit higher. It's about 30%. The really scary thing is that it's quadrupled in the last couple of years in middle school students. So it's up to, I think, 6 or 7% in that area.
Yeah, the really scary fact is the rapid rate that it's been increasing. Yeah. We see every year a stark increase.
I saw one statistic. CDC said 4.9 million kids in America doing it. 1 out of 5 high school students, 1 out of 20 middle school students. That's stunning when you think about it.
Yeah, and I think the numbers keep going up is the other scary part of that too.
Yeah, I think last year it almost doubled the number of kids that are doing it.
But this is all part of Big Tobacco's playbook, right? This is exactly what they were doing in the 90s with Joe Camel, trying to get the kids involved. And along comes Juul, and they've made it cool and hip. And I think 30-40% of the Juul users don't even realize there's nicotine in there.
Right.
That's scary.
Well, it's not just nicotine, right?
Oh, that's true.
What other substances can be used in the Juul?
The Juuls also can contain heavy metals like nickel and just other chemicals that it really varies between e-cigarette to e-cigarette. But the bottom line is that these e-cigarettes haven't been properly reviewed yet by the FDA. So these e-cigarette manufacturers have lots of freedom in what kind of chemicals they can put. And that's really the concern we have.
My favorite chemical in there is propylene glycol, which is basically antifreeze. And while that's a fairly common, they use it also to de-ice airplanes. And it's fairly common in maybe hand lotion and other things for outside the body, but it works great to help make a vapor, and that's why they put it in there. But there's been there just haven't been around long enough to do any long-term study on the effect on your lungs. But some of the indications is it can be quite harmful. So
a couple of weeks ago, there was an article in the newspaper reporting a class action suit involving a 15-year-old Sarasota student. I think it was filed in federal court in Tampa. Are you acquainted with that? You know about the case, Sajid?
Yep.
What's your understanding of that?
Yeah, so my understanding is that this is a classic case of a young individual who started using these products and realized very quickly that it was addictive, it was causing negative health effects. In this individual's case, she was getting seizures because of the nicotine ingestion, and that's a whole nother issue, which is that there's a link between nicotine ingestion and seizures that the FDA is actually investigating. But back to the individual case, because of all these effects and because of the fact that she was drawn to using e-cigarettes because of the fruity and candy flavors I was mentioning earlier, that all builds convincing evidence for a case against these manufacturers.
And I think her lawsuit alleges that Juul was aware of the addictive quality of it and was actually targeting the youth as part of her case. Now, that causation has not been proven in court, but those are the allegations, and it's quite disturbing. Philip Morris owns 35% of Juul, which shows you the relationship between these two. Kind of an unholy alliance, really.
absolutely.
You think Juul's making some money on this?
Without a doubt, actually, Juul has more than 75% of the U.S. e-cigarette market.
I saw one projection, $38 billion.
Is the value of
value
the
now.
company. Yeah.
It's only been in, 3 years? Something like that, 3 or 4 years?
Just a few years.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the health effects. If a person was going to do it, what sensation would they get when they took a draw on one of these devices? What would they feel?
It's basically you're inhaling a vapor that your lungs aren't really designed to take in. So most people find it irritable. Maybe not to the same level as smoke, but it's still an irritation. So most users end up coughing and having that. But then, of course, it's got a lot of nicotine in there. So nicotine, is a stimulant and gives you other gives you other effects as well.
Sajid, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so using those products give youth a buzz feeling, and after they use e-cigarettes more and more, they really feel a drawing to it. So after long periods of not vaping, they just feel a need to go to the bathroom and take a hit of their e-cigarette.
It's incredibly addictive, right? Nicotine is like heroin. About 25% of the people who try it end up addicted. And it's very hard to quit.
Well, the government agencies are coming online now and recognizing it. I happened to pull an article from USA Today, excuse me, from December, quoting the Surgeon General, Jerome Adams. He said that parents and teachers, health professionals, and government officials must take, and here I'm quoting, aggressive steps to keep children from using e-cigarettes. And for young people, nicotine is dangerous and it can have negative health effects. It can impact learning, attention, and memory, and it can prime the youth brain for addiction. So that's what we're worried about, is setting them up.
Absolutely.
So when they get to be adults, be looking for nicotine or cigarettes, right?
Exactly, and because the youth brain is developing, the effect of nicotine is even worse on youth than it is for adults. The addictive potential is even stronger for youth.
They can actually do brain studies and show the effects of nicotine on the developing adolescent brain, because it's an evolving organ. Nicotine has a deleterious effect on it and can cause these memory problems and other things that could be difficult for the youth in the future.
It's truly a gateway drug too, because it's not just getting addicted to cigarettes later on. It's marijuana, heroin, cocaine, alcohol, all these things. The brain is primed for addiction.
Sajid, how can you talk to people, or what things should we be doing to try to correct and stop this?
I think the number one step is simply having those conversations with your child if you're a parent, or with your students if you're a teacher, about the health effects of e-cigarettes and what e-cigarettes actually contain. The fact that they contain nicotine is a very powerful statement and something that a lot of students don't realize. So the first step is educating them and making sure that they're aware, because when I actually go out in the community, I've been to several middle school classrooms, high school classrooms, discuss this issue, and many students simply weren't aware of these factors.
So I picked some other statistics out of articles that have been written. Here's one in the Sarasota paper, talks about 4.9 million kids, high school and middle school, using these products. And they said that the advertising went from 6.4 million in 2011 to 115 million in 2014. So we're up against a pretty big.
It's only going to get worse. One of the reasons Philip Morris or Altria invested in Juul is to help distribute their products. So, their distribution is now going to be 2 or 3 times what it was before.
And we're getting anecdotal reports of children having medical problems.
Yeah.
There's an article out of Indianapolis, students sent to the emergency room. Now what they're doing is substituting marijuana. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I've also heard about that. Students, modifying the vaping devices to substitute marijuana, THC, other types of chemicals.
They found one cartridge with THC was 83.6% THC in one of the cartridges, and the typical level for THC in plants, 15 to 24%. That's a big hit.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how they do that, but there must be some way to get the...
It's the same thing. It's one of the Juul's ways to success is that they figured out some way to get the nicotine level up so people get a better buzz than the previous. These earlier devices didn't work so well and weren't very popular, but Juul basically figured out through their formula that this was the way forward, and yep, it's taken off.
Well, it's against the law to sell these things to kids. So how are they getting them, Sajid?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that youth are getting them. The first way is that youth are getting them from their peers who are 18 years old. So at a typical high school, many of the seniors are 18 years old. So it's very easy for underclassmen with friends that are seniors to get it from them. Another way is that they can buy it online very easily. So as of now, if you want to buy a Juul device, you can simply go on their website. There is no third-party age verification system. You can simply put a check box saying that you're 18 and go ahead to actually buy a Juul device. And I do want to add that there's many stores in the city that don't actually card students. So I have friends who are 16 years old who have gone to vape shops that don't card you and have been able to successfully buy these products.
It sounds like an area for law enforcement to step into.
It's law enforcement and local government, right? We could raise the smoking age or the nicotine purchase age. We could make stricter licensing. We could reduce tobacco sales in your schools. These are all things that we've been working with local government to put in place, but not successful to date.
I assume that the schools could be more aggressive too in how they police it, but they're worried about active shooters and other things really important. But you would think this would get their attention also, right?
I think
and this certainly is getting their attention. We've seen multiple principals, assistant principals coming to the Tobacco-Free Partnership, working with us to get information out to parents, students, and that's an ongoing effort. And we're definitely trying to get as much information out there.
Well, it is illegal for a minor to have even possession of these. It's treated like tobacco.
Right.
But the interesting thing is that you don't see a lot of enforcement that way.
No.
There is a statute that makes using these devices an infraction, which means that they got to take a class, do community control, community service, and also they can lose their license after a while if they do that. But have you seen any sort of enforcement at Pineview on this?
Yeah, so the school district is adopting a policy where youth who are actually caught using vaping products are asked or are made to take a course that essentially teaches them about the health effects of vaping and tobacco products. But I do think that we need to do more prevention efforts where we're doing more to educate students before they even get caught with these products or before they even start using these products.
Okay. Well, folks, I'm afraid we've run out of time. The use of electronic nicotine delivery systems is nearing epidemic proportions with our kids under 18. No matter what the science says, no matter how many times the CDC, the Surgeon General, and reputable scientists tell us about the damage nicotine is doing to developing adolescent brains, some kids will keep on vaping. But if you as an adult or you as a student can discourage e-cigarette use and abstain yourself, you'll be performing a valuable service for the smokers and for our society. Thank you folks for watching.
For more than 36 years, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County has worked one-on-one with estate planning attorneys and their clients to make a lasting impact through philanthropy. Stable, trusted, and knowledgeable, the Community Foundation safeguards the charitable legacies of donors to ensure that they continue for years to come. Visit www.cfsarasota.org or call 955-3000 for more information.